welcome to the panel for how can we get the next billion users, all right? I know everybody is almost asleep. We have really three different people over here. Me, I'm just a user. I'm a degen. I use everything crypto. I invest everything crypto. Not a VC, not a fund, just an ordinary guy out there. I'm going to let my co-panelists introduce themselves, but then I will tell something about them. So we'll start with Ram over here. This is Crypto Man Ram on Twitter.
Thank you, Nathan. My name is Ram. I run a router protocol, which is a cross-chain messaging infra layer, and my team also works on Define, which is an AMM and Polygon. We just launched truly on-chain limit order book. And Nathan, thank you for having me on the panel.
Vineet?
Good evening, guys. This is Vineet here. I run a Cypher Capital out of Dubai. This is our fund too. In fact, we're coming up with a third fund. Invested in over 200 plus projects across different spaces. We have invested in DeFi, play to earn, layer ones, and here to talk about DeFi and the next billion users around.
All right, guys. For those of you who are not really listening, I'll tell you something, okay? So Vineet runs Cypher Capital. Cypher Capital Fund 2 is a $100 million fund. And he has already decided to deploy to 15 projects this ETH Denver. After seeing 15 projects in the last few days, he has decided to put money there. So if you're raising money, you want to be here, listen to him, try to impress him, attract his, or get his some kind of attention, all right?
So interestingly, I go to a lot of events and ETH Denver. I think the quality of projects that came here was quite, I go to Consensus, I go to Token 2049. But I think the projects that we saw here, who have actually developed something, and the quality of the founders is amazing. So that number is actually true. I've already met 8-9 investments that we will be doing the investments on.
Think about it. A VC getting to invest in 15 projects at one event, that's big. Now, Ram over here, with both of his projects, he's hiring big time. So if you guys are trying to get into the space, you would want to talk to Ram after this, all right? Now, first thing I want to ask them is, what do they like about the space? What are the things they like in the space? I'll start with Ram, though.
About crypto in general or DeFi in specific?
DeFi and crypto in general, okay?
I mean, we all like crypto. I mean, not much to talk about there, but DeFi, I guess especially personally, I came from finance, and the ability to sort of do a lot of things in a far more efficient manner, and in a manner that sort of is more free, I would say. I mean, it's got its own connotations, but without paying a commission to a bank or to a middleman, I think that's super powerful, right? And then I guess from a broad vision perspective, you truly sort of DeFi is what truly captures the potential of crypto, in the sense that it democratizes the overall global financial situation. It's a bit of a pipe dream right now, but eventually, if you look at how banks are upping their game, and we're going to get there. So I think a lot of those things, near term, far term, appeal to me as a DeFi builder.
How about you, Vineet? What are some things that you really like in DeFi and crypto at the moment, where you think that will attract people to the space?
So, when I invest in projects, I look at the use case as such. So decentralized finance has been something that is really up there on my list always. Because, when you look globally, when you look at places in Argentina where the peso has depreciated 95%, when you look at Zimbabwe, Lebanon, where currencies went off, people actually cannot take money out of their banks. So I don't really believe in centralized banks and centralized agencies controlling how you are going to use your money. So for me, DeFi becomes interesting because it gives people the power to manage their finances, lend and borrow stuff. In fact, one of the examples that I always give is, if you have a house and you need a loan on it, it takes you 2 to 3 months in some countries to get it, and that too dependent on whether the banker will say, agree to that. But when it comes to you having $1 million of a Bitcoin, it's a 5-minute job on a Aave or a compound. So for me, what excites me is that the use case of it, where actually people can end up using it as an alternative to a bank. And that's where I think we have not even started in DeFi. People look at those 90, 80, 90 billion dollars in TVL. That's nothing, you know. We've not even started yet.
Got it. Okay, over here, guys. Who had money on FTX, Celsius, or Voyage out here? Any hands? Okay, at least somebody raised their hands to really show they lost. Okay, I'm over here, okay? Now, I put money on Celsius. You know why? Because it started by an American living in New York. There's no chance he's going to run away with money knowing the laws in this country, right?
Sorry, that's exactly why I moved all my balance from Binance to FTX too.
There you go. So now when I look back, in future, everything that I do with regardings to borrowing and lending, I should have done it on Aave, right? Why shouldn't have been done? If I believe in the space, I shouldn't have done it on a centralized exchange. But how are we going to attract all these people? How many people really use DeFi in the world? How do we get them there? What are your thoughts, Vineet, on that one?
So I'll first tell you a funny one. I was told about Anchor Protocol and the 20% you get there, and as well as these FTXs. I'm not in the 20% a year business. My last one did a 50x. So luckily I never used those DeFi platforms, not CeFi platforms. But again, how do we get users on board? Again, we've been investing in a lot of DeFi platforms as well, and every time you're talking to a founder, his whole story is that I'll do a marketing push and I'll target Uniswap users and I'll target these guys. I think that's not how the next billion users are going to come. Someone has to land up in Lebanon and give them a solution where you can deposit and earn on an Aave, which is attached to a credit card or a debit card that you can use it on ground. And suddenly whole of Lebanon is along with you. Someone with a stable coin needs to land up in Zimbabwe and see to it that rather than the US dollar, the USDT starts getting used to do transactions over there. So I think the next the next billion users will come from adoption where it is needed. You know, there's no need, like people always say, until I don't give you a 15% on a lending platform, who is going to come to crypto? You really don't need to do that. You just need to go to Argentina and give them a 3%, which is equivalent to what they get in the US. They just need stability there. You really don't need to do those 15, 20. And there's a huge addressable market. Problem is founders have been too focused on tokenomics and pumps. They need to come down and build products for the people. And that's what I think the next cycle is all about.
How about you, Ram? How do you think you define and router together are trying to bring the next billion users on DeFi or crypto?
Sure. I mean, if you'll indulge me, I'll sort of give you my perspective, which is slightly long, which is, you know, if you go back 20 years, if you looked at, you had Microsoft and Apple and Palm Pilot and Sun Solaris, for those of us that remember all these operating systems and interfaces. And if somebody sent you a Word doc from their MacBook, and if you happen to be on a Microsoft system, you couldn't open it. The formatting would be off. It'd be completely messed up. And you were to sort of talk to IT and ask them to format it for you, resend it for you, right? And as a developer of applications, you had to sort of specifically develop for each of these individual operating systems, right? Now, crypto dApps are exactly where Web 2 was 20 years ago, right? I mean, you have developers developing for Polygon and Ethereum and Cosmos and Algorand and, and each of this is a silo, right? And as an end user, right, you need MetaMask, a certain wallet, certain RPC for Matic, something else for something, and for Cosmos, you have a whole Kepler wallet and all those things, right? So it's a fragmentation of experience, both from a developer perspective and a user perspective, right? And in Web 2, it was solved by two things. One was Google Sheets, Google Docs, the cloud, basically, right? And so once you had a Google Doc link, it opened up fine, irrespective of which operating system it was, right? As a developer, you just need to worry about deploying AWS, right? Obviously, there's some UI tweaks, but you don't need to individually develop for each operating system, right? So I think Web3 is getting there. So especially with what we are building at Router, the whole cross-chain messaging infra piece, what we're aiming to do is abstract out blockchains for the end user. Now, let me give you another analogy. If you want to go book a ticket from here to New York, where you live, right? So you don't sort of go to Expedia and say, I want a business class seat or whatever. but then you don't end up sort of deciding which flight or where your layover is or what interchange fee you pay if you have a stopover at Chicago or the gate fee. You don't need to worry about anything. You just put in stuff into Expedia, it throws back a bunch of options, right? I think eventually the Web3 dApp experience should mirror that, right? I want to swap USDT for Ethereum, and that's all I should worry about. I don't need to worry about whether it's the best rates on Uniswap and Ethereum or Pangolin or Avalanche or whatever, PancakeSwap or this thing or DeFi or Polygon. You should not need to worry about that. You should just have just what you want, and all the complexity of the underlying chains in the app should be abstracted away. I think that's a key part of our vision at Router, and I think that's going to be important in terms of the cross-chain connectivity as well as elements around account abstraction, which I think is a huge growing area of this thing, especially after the latest EIP, I forget the number, that went through.
So guys, here you hear two of a VC telling how he is expecting people to come on board and how a developer is working towards that goal, making interoperability possible. From a user perspective, I believe that it's education. People, like whether it's the funds and the companies, they have to put a lot more effort into education so that they go around the world, either them or they fund the companies or educators around the world, trying to explain to common people how to use these systems. Because there is a difference. They are not used to it, either through gamification or how you can get crypto to common people. That's one way you can get there. Let me ask something, Vineet. What are you scared in the DeFi space? Would you say you're scared of regulations or anything, something like that? Or are you scared of the scamsters and fraudsters out there?
So again, as a VC, I know that 95% of my investments can fail. So scare is something that I don't think I have in my dictionary much. But yes, looking at it from a user perspective, the hacks that are happening, the regulations that are coming in, those are the key concerns. Today in the US, if you don't want to end up going through a centralized exchange, you can land up on a Uniswap and do a transaction without anyone knowing it, because you in the end don't want to pay up 60% tax on a purchase. So my point is that when regulations come and when there is a lot of blocking that would come to these exchanges, if they don't follow the KYC parameters, it can really affect it. But I just recently spoke on one of the podcasts, and my whole thing is that it's good that regulations are coming. It's good that US is stopping this, because crypto is shifting globally. So at least I will be not influenced by US market rates always, because crypto will be big in Africa, crypto will be big in Latin America and Asia. So for me, these are scary points like regulation. Scammers, definitely, they have always been there. So we need intelligent people to come on board and actually educate a lot more people. And crypto is here to stay. It's nothing to get scared on, I would say.
How about you, Ram? What keeps you sleepless at night? Something that is it the honeypot, the hacks onto your protocol, or something else?
Yeah, I mean, we are in the bridging business, so I think it's always a sleepless night. I mean, whenever a hack happens, you're worried. But I think, touch wood, so far so good. But I think more broadly, regulation is key, and also, while we believe that crypto's be all, and I mean, it's if you look at the macro picture, I mean, crypto is still a very, very small portion of the overall economy, and the irony is, the Bitcoin white paper came out in 2009, and sort of it referenced the UK, the British, the English governor Mervyn King sort of announcing another monetary money printing effort. And crypto is sort of an antidote to that. It sort of rails against inflation and fiat inflation by politicians and policymakers. The irony is, even today, all crypto markets are driven by the US Fed and other Feds opening up the money printer. I mean, DeFi summer, how did that happen, right? I mean, there was a loosening of interest rates. I mean, even right now, irrespective of the narrative and irrespective of all the Kool-Aid that every project, including myself, tells the market and ourselves, the reality is, for a bull market to happen, you need the money printer to go burr again, right? So that's the biggest worry for me. How do we sort of transcend that macro? Maybe we don't, but at least we should become as big as at least commodities, or at the moment we're still not a standalone asset class that is as important as as currencies, commodities, fixed income, equities, right? So maybe we get there, and then our dependence on the money printer goes down. But ultimately, we're very macro-driven and very mimetic.
So generally, when I go around the globe, I do a lot of seminars and educational stuff. People ask me, should I be scared about regulation? What will happen? I always ask them this question. When you want to drink, are you afraid that prohibition is going to make you stop drinking? If you have planned to drink, do you think the prohibition in any place is going to make you stop? No. If you have planned to drink, you're going to drink. Because as a drinker, you're not going to jail, right? So I always think in that way. And I used to tell people, I used to travel from 2016. I was traveling to India, and I used to say, you got to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum. And they would say, oh, what would happen, the government, has the government allowed it or not? Well, they just kept watching Bitcoin go, or Bitcoin or Ethereum go from $30 to $4,000 or $200 to $20,000. They never bought it because has the government approved this? So regulations are scary for a lot of people. But when you're buying assets, do you have to worry so much? That being said, I don't want you guys to sleep. I'm going to give it the floor, the mic open to you guys. You can ask these two guys questions that you want, all right? If you raise your hands, there's, guys, can you give the mic over here? All right, I'll give mine, all right?
Thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, I was just curious in the topic of regulation. Here we go. In the topic of regulation, do you ever feel worried that while regulation can help onboard more users, it can diminish innovation from industry leaders and people who have been here from the beginning?
So again, when it comes to regulation, I personally feel governments start regulating something strictly after a lot of people have come on board. Like in India, we had the stock markets that started in 80s, highly unregulated, people made millions. We had 2 scams, and finally in the 90s, you started regulating it up. And today it's a stock market that is used by the masses. So regulation also has an advantage that people start becoming more secure about certain investing. The second concern is that US stopping crypto as such. Again, for me, it's advantageous because I want people in Africa to adopt it, people in Latin America to adopt it, and in Asia to adopt it. People who are not speculating on crypto but using it. When I talk to people in US, for example, have you bought Bitcoin? Yes. For what? Because it will go up in price. This is not use case. Use case means using these platforms to lend, borrow. Use case means using stable coins to actually pay for your transactions. I haven't seen that a lot in the US, but I'm seeing that a lot happening in Nigeria, for example. If you go there, people are actually using these cards to do transactions. So I don't think there's major concerns here, but we are evolving. We are less than 3% of the world population right now.
Questions, guys? Hands? I thought, okay. There's a hand over here.
Quick question based on what you
To
said.
me?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Just hold it closer, okay?
Yeah, to what you said was education is a big component. As a UX designer, someone who might be an advocate of financial education, it's really a fail-safe, right? Like you can teach a low-income person to try to build credit or use credit properly, but you cannot force that behavior on them. So thinking about the future of DeFi users, how do you enable that education through experience? And like regulation is an aspect of it, but I think it's the use case, as you said as well. It's not a proper question, but.
Okay. So you can't force somebody. Education is not about forcing somebody, okay? So you look at these ads, cigarette smoking is injurious to health. You write that multiple times. It comes there, and then it becomes subconsciously there on your mind, right? So if you are educating people around you, they see that, okay, somebody else, let's say he said the case in Argentina, okay? Your friends who are getting paid in pesos, who converted quickly to USDT, are getting every day, their value, their purchasing power has not gone down. Okay, initially somebody tried to educate you, you didn't believe it. Now they are seeing it with your friends or people in your community. And at that time, you are also going to be part of it. Okay, because somebody started doing it, then they're sharing their story with you. All right? That's how it works. It's not by a force. You are sending the message out. Make sense?
So just to add on this, education also runs on what value does it derive for you. When Jack Ma sent Alibaba people around China's interiors to tell them that whatever you make here will be sold to the world, this was educating them or getting them on a system. When you look at India, people said e-commerce will never happen. And a lot of education was done through Amazon.coms of the world where people actually started buying it. Once they see the value of it, it really helps. And if you have some global factor, like, e-commerce spread, electronic payment spread in India just because COVID came. But in China, it has been around. So education is also what value does it get you. Tomorrow when people start seeing it that, I can save in US dollars and earn in US dollars, they will start using it. Just that someone needs to land up over there like a missionary and convert them.
So, initially, when this whole Bitcoin movement or the cypherpunk movement during 2009 to 2014-15, there used to be people who go to these conferences and give you 1 to 10 Bitcoins, okay? They were giving 10, 20. Like, I know Jeff Garzik and all, he's given more than 15,000 Bitcoins away in his lifetime, all right? Now, I'm not saying all the guys who got it really saved it. They didn't understand it maybe. But that 15,000 many of those guys gave away made their Bitcoins more valuable today because they brought more people into the network, right? So that always is going to help. No matter everything that you give out, and you try to educate the person next to you, things in your hand, it's going to get more in value. So just for that, you can do that. Questions, guys? There's a question over there, please.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
What role does design and user research play in onboarding more users onto DeFi?
Look, the answer lies in the question, right? It is probably the single most important thing that will enable users to come on board, right? And I think that's why things like account abstraction, etc., are so incredibly exciting. I think we're also getting to a space where we can actually identify users not in a way that identities can be misused, like in Web 2, but you can do targeted, you can derive or abstract targeted information around your user demographics, and I think it's an ongoing process, but I think user design is super important, right? And imagine an app that's like ChatGPT, right? And then you go in and it's sort of, can I read your MetaMask wallet? So maybe you first state your problem. Listen, I've got $100,000. I want to deploy it on some chain and get the maximum yield, right? And then so chat on the back end, you do all the processing, and then you feed that to the interface, and sort of imagine such an interface that sort of abstracts out the current experience, which is, I click on MetaMask, approve one transaction, sign another transaction, just to get a token from one chain to another chain. So, short answer, yes, user design is super, super important, but eventually it's going to mirror Web 2 fintech platform experience where when you Venmo somebody money, just literally a swipe from your account to their account, right? So I think we'll get there maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, but we have to get there to get the remaining 90 million, the 90%, 91%.
Just like great companies got great people just because of their UI, same thing here. People who build great UIs are going to capture the audience, no doubt. And it is going to be extremely, extremely important, the UI and UX.
And I guess the marketing is also going to be important, right?
All right, guys. They have signaled us to cut this out, but they're over here. You can talk to them after this. I hope you enjoyed the talk given by both of them. Give them a big round of applause,
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Just, we three studied in a place just 1 hour next to each other in India, but we meet in US. One guy is in India, the guy is in Dubai, and I'm in New York.